War games represent a specific category in gaming. Basically, any first-person shooter can be considered a war game because you need some sort of conflict to justify bringing out the big guns. But in our top 10 list, we wanted to focus more on strategy games that centered around traditional state-sponsored warfare. In conclusion, you'll find a mix between shooters and strategy games that we think have that special combination of ingredients to immerse the player in the battlefield, be it fictional or inspired by real events. Launched back in 1995, Command & Conquer is considered a title that defined the real-time strategy wargame. The player has to build a base and gather resources so that he or she will be able to develop technologies, combat units, and buildings that will help him conquer the opponent's camp. The sole resource is Tiberium, an alien substance that's extremely valuable, and the two factions present in the game, the Global Defense Initiative and the Brotherhood of Nod, will constantly be fighting to obtain it. The player can choose one of these two factions, each having a unique style when it comes to strategy. Command & Conquer is a game that implies military strategy and combat tactics, making it an exemplary title for the genre. A turn-based strategy, real-time tactics game where the player can command armies of humans, dwarves, vampires, or greenskins, a faction containing trolls, giants, and Arachnox spiders. There are 4 playable factions, each of them having their own units. For example, both the Empire and the Vampire counts have access to magic spells, a novelty in the Total War series. There are some features available in the game such as city building, diplomacy, and unit building. This installment is constructed upon fictional characters unlike the other titles in the franchise that base their stories on real-life nations and leaders. Total War Warhammer has been received very well by critics, its gameplay mechanics, factions, and combat strategies being appreciated. It's also the fastest selling Total War title, with 500,000 copies shipped in the first few days after release. The Delta Squad tries to save the last human inhabitants from the fictional planet Sera that has been invaded by a subterranean enemy called the Locust Horde. The player takes the role of Marcus Phoenix, a seasoned soldier, and has to use cover and stealth moves to fight in this military science fiction third-person shooter. A specific weapon in the game is the Lancer, a rifle that has a chainsaw attached to it and can also be used in melee combat. The game has a campaign that spreads across 5 acts and can be played single-player or in co-op mode with somebody else. A multiplayer version is available, where you can test your skills against human-controlled opponents. Gears of War was the best-selling game of 2006, with over 3 million copies bought in just 10 weeks. Set during World War II, Blitzkrieg is the first title of a 3-part franchise. It had 6 playable factions and the action takes place in Russia, Africa, Europe, and the Pacific. It focuses more on the actual battles rather than on an RTS-based building approach. The player can choose from 3 different campaigns, each with several chapters: the Nazi campaign, the American campaign, and the Russian campaign. Blitzkrieg has been acclaimed when it was first released, and we chose to feature this installment and not Blitzkrieg 3 since it's not yet out of the development period. Blitzkrieg 2 is also a good game, but not as well received by the community as its predecessor that basically revolutionized the genre. Battlefield 3 takes place during the fictional war of 2014 and is a first-person shooter. The player can play as one of several military roles available in the campaign mode. The mission starts out as a flashback from the character's past. The multiplayer is by far the strongest point of the game. It offers 4 roles: support, assault, engineer, and recon, and with new and improved mechanics, Battlefield 3 received a fair amount of positive comments. With the multiplayer being very accurate and realistic, one can feel like he or she is actually in a real combat scenario when playing it. Because of this, we took Battlefield 3 into consideration when we designed our top 10 war games list. At the end of the Cold War, the Soviet Union isn't dissolved, but declares war on other nations across the globe. This is the alternate scenario this game presents. Western Europe and the Northeast Pacific coast of the United States get involved in this combat, and the player will take on the role of First Lieutenant Parker. The gameplay doesn't offer the possibility to gather resources or build units. Instead, the game grants you points that can be used to buy units. The fact that the player doesn't need to farm for units is a plus that satisfied many enthusiasts of the genre. This real-time tactical game was met with positive reviews upon its release, even receiving several awards at the 2007 E3 presentation. Inspired by the notorious 1916 Battle of Verdun, the eponymous game is a squad-based multiplayer first-person shooter with the action taking place during the Great War. The locations, the uniforms, the weapons, and the maps are based on real-life elements, and we think this attention to detail is very impressive and helps with the immersion. There are 4 game modes, and it can be played with up to 32 players. In Frontlines, the player has to choose one of the allies, Central Powers or Intent, and in a turn-based type of gameplay, the goal is to conquer map sectors. Attrition Warfare is a deathmatch between the 2 powers. Squad Defense gets the players in a team of 4 and makes them fight against AI-controlled waves of bots in the realistic map of Argonne. Rifle Deathmatch tests the player's skills using a rifle in a free-for-all confrontation. Medal of Honor: Allied Assault is the 3rd title from the Medal of Honor franchise and is a first-person shooter that takes the player back to the military events of D-Day. The single-player environment is often compared with the scenery found in Steven Spielberg's Saving Private Ryan. This fact adds to the authentic, warlike feel this game has and makes the player feel immersed throughout the whole gameplay. Unfortunately, as of June 2014, the multiplayer servers have been disconnected, but the authentic warlike feeling this game has can still be experienced in its genuine nature in the single-player campaign. In conclusion, we chose Medal of Honor: Allied Assault for its lifelike sceneries and authentic feel the gameplay has. In Hearts of Iron 4, the player can take control of any nation that existed from 1936 to 1938 during World War II. The goal is to enter the war and obtain victory against one of the 3 powers: the Axis, the Allies, and the Comintern. The strong point of this war strategy game is its replayability. Having countless strategy moves to follow, different Navy, Army, and Air Forces, and various resources and industries, the player can enjoy playing and replaying the scenarios for hundreds of hours. Since it's a fairly recent release that only added to the complexity of the previous installments, Hearts of Iron 4 still has time to impress players and critics with new additions and patches. Anyway, this is a game that brings great satisfaction to those who like to develop grand strategies of their own and build upon them. Company of Heroes is a real-time strategy game that has its action set during the Second World War. The player can choose between 2 playable factions, and the goal is to conquer different sectors of the map that contain valuable resources. These resources will help him build new structures in the main base and new units. The end goal being, as you may have expected, using the best strategy to overrun your enemy. The majority of combat takes place in direct line of sight, and the player has the ability to command his various units. Company of Heroes has a very complex gameplay mechanic, being dubbed the best strategy game of the year back when it was released. In 2012, it was the best ranking real-time strategy game in the world, and people still prefer playing it today, 10 years after its release. Those were our selections for the top 10 war games that are worth playing, and we hope you've enjoyed our video. If you feel we did a good job and you liked our selections, please press that like button, as we do appreciate it and it does help us immensely. You can also post other titles in the comments you think we may have missed. We do read pretty much everything. Now would also be a good time to encourage you to subscribe to our channel, because we upload new videos all the time, so subscribing will keep you up to date with all of our latest stuff. You can check out fraghero.com for more gaming related articles. Until next time, thanks so much for watching, and have a great day, guys.
Divide and conquer. Always divide first before you conquer.